This is the Rolex Submariner black dial Oystersteel 40mm. Sitting here looking at it, the first thing that stands out is just how balanced and clean this watch looks. That classic black dial with no date window is exactly what a lot of people think of when they imagine a traditional dive watch. It's a simple, timeless look. I've worn this one on my wrist for the last week, and honestly, I get why people say the Submariner is special, even if you're not a diver. If you're new to Rolex or watches in general, the dial is that round face with the hour markers and hands. The lack of a date means everything is lined up perfectly. Nothing breaks up those bold hour markers, and it just feels easy on the eyes. From my experience, wearing the Submariner 114060 feels great right out of the box and throughout the day. The 40mm size is that sweet spot for me. Not too big, not too small. And the thickness is just enough to remind you it's tough, but not so much that it's uncomfortable under a shirt cuff. The Oystersteel describes the stainless steel Rolex uses, which is harder and supposedly more resistant to corrosion than regular steel. That's partly what gives it that unique shine and solid feel. One of the key features I pay attention to is the bracelet. This Submariner has the Oyster bracelet, which is just Rolex's name for their solid flat link steel bracelet. What I find super useful is the glide lock adjustment system. It's basically a way to slide the clasp so you can micro adjust the fit in very small steps, up to about 20mm, and you don't need any tools. On hot days when my wrist swells, I can have the watch feeling comfortable in seconds, which is something I wish more watches had. The bezel, which is that outer ring around the dial, is also a big deal for me. On this watch, the bezel is made of Cerachrome, a super hard ceramic that doesn't scratch easily and doesn't lose its color over time. It just feels solid turning it, and every click is firm, so even timing my coffee or lunch break with it is actually fun. Those platinum-filled numerals on the bezel look great and still read even in weird lighting. I've taken this watch swimming and even into the shower. A quick rinse gets it looking spotless again, and the crown, that's the knob you use to set the time, screws down tight, so I never worry about water getting in. I know some folks think the Submariner without the date is for purists, but honestly, I can see why. When I wore it, sometimes I did miss glancing down and seeing the date, but after a while, I appreciated the clear, symmetrical face. I found myself just using my phone for the date, and looking at the Submariner, I felt it always looked clean and balanced, which is something you don't always get when you add complications like a date window. The movement inside, which is just the word for the tiny engine that powers the watch, is called the Caliber 3130. It's certified for accuracy and is really reliable, from what I've read and from my own testing, gaining or losing about 1 or 2 seconds each day, even as I wear it while working, running errands, or hanging out. It has a 48-hour power reserve, which means if I take the watch off for a day and a half, it'll still be running when I pick it up again. Some newer watches have a longer reserve, but for me, winding it every other morning became part of my routine, almost like making coffee. When it comes to style, I think that's where the Submariner 114060 has an edge. I've worn it with a t-shirt and jeans and also with a button-down shirt, and it just works. The lugs, which are those arms that attach the bracelet to the case, are a little wider and thicker than on older models, and honestly, it does feel just a bit chunkier on the wrist than I expected. For me, it actually feels closer to a 42mm watch instead of a true 40mm. But that extra heft reminds me this is meant to be a tool watch, built for actual diving. At the same time, the case isn't so thick that it gets caught on things, and it slips under most sleeves pretty easily. If you're thinking of getting your first Rolex or your first nice watch, I'd recommend this for someone who wants a one-and-done, reliable, everyday piece. It's perfect for travel, daily wear, or if you just want something for special occasions. Because the Submariner line is so recognizable, that does mean you'll want to be a little cautious about where you wear it. I admit, sometimes I find myself checking twice when I'm on public transport or out late, just because it stands out. That's part of owning such a well-known watch, but it never stopped me from enjoying it. Rolex fans will know this model was discontinued in 2020, which means finding a new one takes patience, or paying a bit more through a reseller. If you get one, especially in great condition, you can expect it to hold its value well. I like that it doesn't scream for attention, but if someone else knows watches, it's an instant conversation starter. On the bracelet, Hairline scratches do show up pretty fast on the shiny sides and clasp. After just a few days of desk chores, I noticed marks, but honestly, they give the watch character. I know people worry about keeping their Rolex flawless, but I think the small dings add to the story. Wearing it every day, those marks feel like my own history with the watch. Another thing I picked up is how strong the lume is on this Submariner. Lume is that glowing material on the hands and markers, so you can read the time at night or underwater. The chromolite lume here is bright blue, and after just a few minutes in daylight, it glows really well for hours. For me, that's a sign of a proper tool watch, but it also makes it easy to check the time in a dark theater or bedroom.